Arch Advocate Podcast, Monday morning. Welcome back. I've got some news for you. I got stung by a bee on my finger today. It really hurts, man. I haven't been stung by a bee in like years. I don't remember it feeling like your skin was on fire. Anyways, you want to know how to start a war? How do you start a war? Right? Like you would think that would take, so that'd be a huge undertaking. And my wife, when she was a little girl, her nation was at war. She tells me horrible stories. Her and her parents had to live in a bombed out building that had no roof, and like when it rained, they would get wet, right? Because there was war in Albania. Like she remembers that, and the way that I talk on this podcast is the same way I talk with my wife. And, I keep telling her, it's like, honey, listen, I want to get back to the United States, and, we're going to have to go first. If we don't have enough money to move your parents, like, it's just going to be us at first. Because we need to get the hell out of here, because this portion of the planet has a history of going to war at the drop of a hat over pretty much anything. And, and it looks like there's a civil war about to break out in the United States. And it's like, if it comes down to, do I want to be in the middle of a war in Eastern Europe, or do I want to be in the middle of a war in my own country? It's like, well, I'll choose my own country. Because, there's over 20 million people at least. There's at least 20 million people that are just like me. Right? They're armed, they've been trained, we all have the same military training, give or take. Right? They're all proficient in weaponry, they all have the same sort of code where it's like, look, I don't care who the politician is. I'm about the Constitution. I'm about this nation. That's what I care about. And I don't care if it's somebody that I like or even somebody that I voted for. You cross that line. You inflict damage, you molest the Constitution in any way, I'm going to come and get you. And I would rather be surrounded by the safety of my own people. And people look at me crazy, like, well, what are you talking about? How can you talk about like going to war? It's like, well, how can I not? The fact is, now this is a fact, peace is an anomaly. It's a rare occurrence. It's almost in the same category as like miracles. But you wouldn't know that if you're in America, like you wouldn't know that because our soil has not been at war. There's not been war on our soil, on the mainland, for over 100 years. That's your great grandfather for most people. I was trying to do the math. Like that would like my great grandfather was in World War One, and his mother babysat for the Lincoln family, Abraham Lincoln's family. She didn't babysit Abraham Lincoln. She babysat some of his younger siblings. But like that was when the last time war was. It was the Civil War. It was a long ass time ago, and it's so long, in fact, that you can't remember it because you don't have anybody in your life who was there to tell you the stories. Everything that you know about the Civil War, you learn from books and movies. So it almost seems like, well, it's never. But dear American brothers and sisters, that is anomalous. Nobody else can say that. Well, Canada, but you know what I mean? Like Canada and the United States, even Mexico's like, I don't know when the last time a war was in Mexico, but the fact is like the French and the Germans, like there's French people alive right now that remember the last time there was a war on their soil. That's how recent it was. And we've had about 80 years of peace in Europe, but that's an anomaly. Because the rest of Europe, it's like, listen, we just got Poland out of communism in the 80s. Mr. Gorbachev tear down that wall, like, yeah, that was easy, that was the Berlin Wall, but it's like, no, that wall, when we exited the Second World War, We screwed Poland. We were just like, all right, Russia, here you go, Stalin. Why don't you just take Poland? We screwed. If anybody has like a legitimate beef to be upset with the United States, it's Poland, for sure. But they're not, because they're not little bitches. But you see what I'm saying? Like, peacetime is an anomaly. The fact that we've lived in peace for so long has confused us to the nature of reality. Like, peace isn't reality, war is reality. And we've lived in peace for so long that we've forgotten that. Like, it's just something in the human condition. And like, how do you orchestrate something like that? How can you get an otherwise peaceful people who have had, 150-year reign of peace on their own soil? How do you get those people to re-engage with their monkey DNA and go to war with one another? How do you take peaceful people who are enjoying peace and prosperity and success and family and all that other good stuff? How do you do that? Well, the first thing that you're going to need is a long game. A long game. You're not going to do it overnight. Right? Now, Adolf Hitler, he had an overnight plan because Germany was broke. The people of Germany were already on edge. That's how that happened. But how do you get people that aren't on edge, that are peaceful, they just want to go to work and enjoy their lives and just enjoy everything that God's given them? How do you get those people to get on edge? Well, you need a long game plan. You need to start telling the children, like, hey, listen, there is no truth, there is no God. There is as much of a God as there is Santa Claus. Everything is like, it's all made up. Morality and virtue, and it can be whatever you want to be, man. And you have to cast a spell so effective that to make it work properly would take decades. Who has the patience for that? The reason I bring this up is there's a number of things that, remember, when we see these things, you have to look at it as if it's all a big strategy. Right? Like, if you were the devil, if you were Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, Mussolini, the villains, if you were one of those people, how would you do it? Right? What would you need to do? So I'm looking at Brenda Snipes over the weekend. Magically, remember, I called this weeks and weeks ago, probably even months ago, is that no matter what happens, no matter what the Democrats do, it's not over. They're just going to keep escalating and keep escalating because that is their plan. The plan is to get an otherwise peaceful people to kill one another, to go to war. And it's in large part, it's being engineered by George Soros, who has a history of undermining a nation's sovereignty to devalue its currency so that he can take short positions on it and rob that nation blind. Now, you look at what he did to the United Kingdom. More importantly, you have to look at when he did it, right? When he robbed the Bank of England, it was the biggest currency trade by an individual ever. And he robbed the Bank of England. And what is different about England since he did that? Well, all of a sudden they're just importing all these weird people with no skills and no IQ, and they come to the United Kingdom and they go straight on to welfare. And the numbers are crazy too. It's like 90-something% of the women and like 65% of the men, and then you consider households, and it's like, then when you consider like the households, is anybody in that household getting welfare? It's like almost 100%. It's nuts. Why would somebody do that? Why would anybody with any sort of grasp on economics or how to run a business or anything, why would anybody do that? And it's like, well, you start seeing the behavior in the United Kingdom very shortly after George Soros went over there and emptied their pockets. Because you've probably heard that story of how he cleaned out the Bank of England. The thing is that you probably didn't do any follow-up. What was the deal made? What was the deal that he made with the people of the with the politicians of the United Kingdom? Because obviously they didn't go bankrupt, right? They didn't file for bankruptcy. They didn't melt. Their economy didn't melt down. You know what I mean? It would be like if all of a sudden the Federal Reserve was broke, which technically they are, but you know what I mean? Like, what happened? Well, I mean that's all speculation, but you can kind of look at the history. It's like, well, here's George Soros walking away with all their money legally, and then going on to 60 Minutes and saying, well, if I didn't do it, somebody would have done it. It might as well be me, right? We all saw that interview. That's what he said. Somebody's going to do it. So it might as well be me. And then all of a sudden, the United Kingdom completely changes their way. They sell their soul to the European Union, and you know what I mean? Like it's nuts. And then you get into the European Union. This is what I was saying. How to start a war. I was talking. There's a lady here in this town that I'm in, and she works for not Greenpeace. Oh, the Peace Corps. Sorry, she works for the Peace Corps. She's been here 2 years, I think. And she's a nice lady. She's from New York. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, did you hear Emmanuel Macron of France saying that he wants a European Union military, right? Now, many of you folks, you've heard that, right? You heard it over the weekend. Macron's up there saying, well, nationalism is being treasonous, and we want to have a military that's, a European Union military, and we need this military to protect ourselves from, Russia, China, and the United States. It's like, what? What did you just say? Oh, I said we want to have a European military so we can protect ourselves from the United States. Now, people tend to not put things together like this. I was talking to my friend. I was like, I'm telling you, this Europe is about to go to war again. She's like, come on, you're being crazy. What are you talking about? It's like, okay, go over the history of the last 118 years. Germany completely subdued Europe twice, right? They ruled the world. They conquered the world, right? The world being everything other than our continent, the Americas. They conquered the entire thing. They conquered all of Europe, and as Europe goes, the rest of that part, look, Europe is connected to China. Europe is connected, like if you go the long way, Europe is even connected to Africa. You control Europe, then you control the world. And Germany controlled the world twice in the last 120 years. That's a pattern. And now there's a European Union, and guess who's at the head of it? You say European Union, all I hear you saying is Germany. And Germany is the head of the European Union. Germany has a history of taking over Europe twice in the last 120 years. Now they've done it again. That's what we call a hat trick. Not one, not two, but three. 3 times. Now, Germany has taken over Europe, and now they're calling for a military to do what? To protect themselves from the United States. Now, broader implication here, folks. Broader, think bigger. What's something that the United States has in Germany? We have military in Germany. Do you know why we have military in Germany? Because you hear people saying like, oh, I don't know why we have all these military bases everywhere. It's like everywhere that we have a military base is a place that we were forced to go over and kick their asses and say, okay, no more for you. We had to go over to Germany and kick their asses because it was like, hey, listen, German people, of whom we have a lot of German people in the United States, we're not going to let you exterminate the Jews. We're not going to let you run Europe, so here's a big fat boot in your ass, and you better start acting smart from now on. And by the way, We're going to keep a military, we're going to occupy your country forever. Because you effed up so badly. You effed up so badly. That from now on, this is our country. We're going to be keeping a very close eye on you. That's why we have military bases, plural. We've got military bases there. We even have like complete like VA places, you know, like military hospitals that you can get. Like if I needed medical care, I could go to Germany, and I could get on base, and I could go to the doctor, and they would treat me. Like we have a lot of stuff in Germany. So when the European Union starts talking about, well, we need to form a military to protect us from the United States, it's like, so are you going to ask us to leave? Because if you do, that's going to be a big, big problem. You form a European Union and then ask us to leave, and we say no, what are you going to do when you're not asking? Are you going to attack? Is that what you want? Because that's what Emmanuel Macron is talking about when he says we want to have a European Union military. It's treading on dangerous grounds, and this coming from a man who married his teacher. Like his wife is like way older, so I mean, there's coming out of the gate, there's something wrong with this guy. And then over the weekend, in light of Donald Trump's statement saying, why is nationalist a bad word? I love this nation. Does that make me a nationalist? Then I guess I'm a nationalist. And then Macron, standing right next to Donald Trump, says nationalism is treason. We have to be nice to people who want to kill us. It's like, man, what kind of weirdness, what dimension have I arrived in where this is happening? Calling people treasonous for being proud of their nation? I guess that would depend very heavily on your definition of nationalist, wouldn't it? Well, you know, like the Germans were nationalists, you know, in World War II. It's like, yeah, they were socialists too. They were national socialists. See how that works? Dummy. But going on, you know, moving forward, it's like, what else? What else can we see? It's like, well, here's Europe, and it looks like they're brewing for war, and it looks like they're importing people who are ready to fight. And they've been subsidizing, like the governments have been paying for Africans with zero skills, next to a zero IQ, nothing to offer, and they've just been shipping these people in by the droves. Why are you doing that? What are you trying to get at? What are you trying to accomplish with this European Union that has been failing the entire time? The EU has been failing the entire. I remember I was a commodity trader. As a matter of fact, I was a currency trader. This was back before I was doing all the commodities. When I was a currency trader, the EU was still a myth. They're like, oh, we should try to do this EU thing where there's just one currency for everybody, and we'll call it the euro and whatever. And every economist in the world was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. There's no way that you can come to an agreement when it's like, if you're trying to sell Italian wine to the Germans, and then there's French wine. By the way, Spain makes very good wine. You've got these three different countries that all make the same product, and they all want to sell it in Germany. There's no way that you're going to be able to come to a mean, you know, like a settling price that's the same for everybody, because it's like, well, you've got shipping concerns. You know what I mean? It takes longer to ship wine from the south of Italy than it does to ship it from central France. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no way that you're going to be able to balance those scales. You've got all these different nations that have their own spin on all these different products, Cheese in Switzerland is not the same thing as cheese in Greece. You know what I mean? There's no way that, and this is what the economists were saying back then. It's like, this is stupid what you people are saying. There's no way. There's no way. The reason why you have fiat currency is so that you can place a value on something and say, this is how much it is. Now, if you want to go to the tables of exchange so that we can figure out how much this currency is worth, that's one thing. But to say that there's going to be an overarching bureaucracy that's going to say, hey, Italian wine, grape grower, this is how much you can sell it for. It's like, dude, nothing good can come from that. But going further, it's like in the United States, like what's the long game? Right? What's the long game? Well, as I said many times, that no matter what happens, it's not over. No matter how many times you see the Democrats doubling down, however egregious and insane it gets, whatever happens, it's not over. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until either they relent and start living like Americans, where what they care about is the safety and prosperity of our nation. They don't care about that. And they don't care about democracy, which is the irony is so thick. It's like you're called the Democrats. You don't give a rat's ass about democracy. So we go down to Broward County, where Brenda Snipes, okay, when you see everything that's happening in Florida, it all comes down to Brenda Snipes, who is a lady who was convicted. Okay, this is the part that it absolutely drives me. Okay, so I used to know this guy, and he did some time in prison for identity theft. Like, he would steal people's credit cards. He was really badly mixed up in methamphetamines. He was one of those people who got caught. He got cleaned up, and he was from a wealthy family, so his family was able to send him to a really expensive Anyways, what I was going to say is that this guy, right? He got convicted of a felony, of a federal crime. He was stealing people's identities and putting innocent people further in debt, probably old people, like a real scumbag, right? But he cleaned up his ways. But what I was getting at is that from that moment on, once he got out of jail, I think he was in jail for like 3 years or something like that. But once he got out of jail, there was no set of circumstances for this guy to ever work in a bank. He was not allowed. He could not get a job as a somebody who runs the till at a grocery store or any other sort of point of sale, where you're handling cash and you're around. Like, from then on, at no point was this guy ever going to be able to work around money, other people's money. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because that's how we are in America. It's like, okay, listen, we are a very forgiving people, and it's like, hey, to this guy, it's like, we forgive you, right? We punished you. We told you have to go to jail. You went to jail. You took it like a champ, but you're forgiven. But from now on, you working with other people's money, that's out of the question. And I think that that's right. I think that that's a right. I mean, I know it's severe, but here's Brenda Snipes, and she was convicted. Here, let me see here. The Broward County Supervisor of Elections office violated state and federal laws by destroying ballots from a 2016 congressional race. They destroyed those ballots too soon. And while the ballots were the subject of a lawsuit against the office, the judge had rules. Or the judge has ruled. Based on the ruling, Florida's Department of State will send election experts to Broward Elections Office in the upcoming election to ensure that all laws are followed, the governor's office said. It could also cost the elections office more than $200,000 to pay attorney's fees for Tim Canova, the defeated candidate who sued the office. All right, so this guy was defeated by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Oh, remember that lady? Remember that lady's name? She's the lady with the crazy, weird, like, her hair looks like I don't know, like a dog when it comes back from the people who shampoo them and blow dry their hair. Like, she's got weird hair. She's just got like a leather face. Like, she looks like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, that's her. She's the one who won that race. A race he lost convincingly, about 57% to 43%, or 28,809 votes to 21,907. So, it's, about 7,000 people. What I was saying is like, number one, I told you that it would continue to get worse. And so now what we're seeing in Florida is in your face election tampering. Semi-trucks full of mail that are pulling up and blocking out people from coming in to see what's in those trucks. This lady, Brenda Snipes, threatened to have reporters arrested. Now you're getting into First Amendment territory. Remember, you'll hear these liberals talking about like, oh, Donald Trump is like a Nazi because he's against the free press. It's like, oh, okay, listen, what has he done against the free press? He was mean to Jim Acosta? Is that what you mean? Okay, being mean to Jim Acosta and nationalizing the press are two completely different scenarios, right? Pulling Jim Acosta's press pass is a far cry from saying the press is not allowed to come in and report on a particular thing. Even if Donald Trump said, I'm not going to have a press corps anymore. I'm not going to have a press secretary anymore. I'm just going to get rid of that. You know that he could do that because there's nothing written into our documents that says the president has to do that. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that. No president does. It's a courtesy, right? But to block off the press from a crime scene, now you're getting dangerously, and I would argue squarely, into violation of the First Amendment, right? Freedom of the press. And that's what's happening, and they're not trying to hide it. They're saying, you cannot come in here and report. Yes, the election was over, a week ago, 6 days ago, but we just found tens of thousands of votes that we forgot to count for some reason. Oh, look, there's truckloads of it. I wonder how this race is going to go. And this lady, Brenda Snipes, how is it, like, you were convicted, not charged and then found not guilty. Like, no, you were charged of a crime that you were found guilty of, and yet Debbie Wasserman Schultz got to hold her up. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know how Fox News or anybody failed to report on this. I don't know how it is that people didn't go down to that office in Broward County with pitchforks and torches. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is clearly, you are breaking the law back in 2016. You're clearly breaking the law. But because we're not monsters and because we are civilized, we said, okay, let's take this to court. And we did. We took it to court. She was found guilty. And yet Debbie Wasserman Schultz got to keep her seat. And this Brenda Snipes got to keep her job. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what's happening here. Clearly our laws are such where it's like, if you get caught stealing other people's identity so that you can rob their bank accounts, then after you're done paying your penance, you may never, ever, ever work around anything having to do with other people's money. How is this lady still working around other people's votes? And not just working, she's the boss. How do you get people to go to war? Well, you do stuff like this in front of everybody. Make it so that everybody can see it, so that everybody gets all worked up. It's bizarre. And it's not just this. It's like the thing in Arizona, which there's still, it's like, look, the vote was November 6th. That's when the vote was. If you need special treatment, right? Hey, listen, governor of my state or attorney general of my state, there was a massive hurricane, all right, and it stopped the mailing system, and there was a mass shooting, there was an earthquake, there was a flood, right? Whatever. Like, you have to do that prior to or up until the 6th. But there was none of that. They just came out the next day and said, well, we don't like the vote, so surprise, here's a whole bunch of extra votes that we failed to count. I wonder how this is going to go. This sort of election tampering, it's not rare. Remember when Al Gore lost against George Bush? Do you remember it all came down to Florida? Do you remember what the circumstances were? It was absentee ballots. It was the ballots coming in from Floridians who were in the military that were living in Germany and living in Croatia and living all over the world. And the reason why Al Gore didn't want those votes to be counted was because the military tends to only vote in one direction. So he didn't want those votes. It's like, yeah, but Al, like, that's not how local democracies work, right? We are a democracy locally when we vote on the mayor, or if we vote on, in our districts, right? When we vote in our districts, which there's all kinds of gerrymandering. By the way, you want to know how it is that all these senators won, but all of these Congress people lost in the exact same state? It's called gerrymandering. It's called how you draw your districts and keep redrawing it so that you only have people in your district that vote your way. That's how that works. That's how that works. And you hear people talking about gerrymandering all the time. It's like, well, we got to fix gerrymandering. Yeah, fix it already. But the Democrats don't want to fix it. No way. That's their bread and butter. That's how they stay in power. You want to know how Maxine Waters has been able to sit there for 30 years? It's called gerrymandering. She has this one little district that she herself does not even live in. She would never live there. That's where the poor people are. She's got this one district, and the lines on it look like, somebody was having a heart attack when they were. It's just like, whoops, like this person, I know this person votes Democrat, so I'm just going to draw right, make sure that their house is in it. But their neighbor votes Republican, so I'm just going to draw this district out because I can't have that guy voting screwing up my numbers. That's how it works. It's called gerrymandering. There was an actual guy named Jerry Mander, and that's where it comes from, kind of like Ponzi schemes. Arthur Ponzarelli, whatever his name was, can't remember. It's the same. It's what I'm saying is, like, that's how that works, and they're doing it right out in the open. Right out in the open. And furthermore, this thing about President Macron, Emmanuel Macron, let's just, from now on, let's call him Macron the Moocher. Hey folks, here's a story about Macron the Moocher. He was a low-down hoochie coocher. Look at what's happening here. We finally get a president who goes in there and says, hey, listen, you guys need to start paying your bills or we will not. Right? If you want to call it quits, and let's just call it quits. But right now, we're shelling out all this money. You guys aren't paying your fair share. Why do we need to keep paying for you? Oh, America, you're rich. America, you're rich. You owe us. It's like, no, we don't. We don't owe you shit. The only reason you're not goose-stepping right now and thinking that clowns are funny is because of us. Because we came and rescued your asses. Oh, but you're a bunch of imperialists and a bunch of religious Puritans. It's like, hey, listen, France. Right? You are right now paying the price for your lewd and lascivious sexual practices. You're a diseased failure. And you know what? Like, we're not going to keep paying your bills. And as soon as we tell them, like, look, you either pay your effing bills or we're going to stop paying ours. How's that? How's that? You want NATO to continue? Pay your bills, and then we will continue to pay ours. Otherwise, if you don't want to pay your bills, neither do we. And all of a sudden, as soon as France is made to pay their bills, and Germany is forced to pay their bills, like responsible adults, they turn all moochy. Oh, let's start a European military. You effing moochers. We need to protect ourselves from the United States. Oh, yeah, because us making you pay your bill is a violation. That's who these people are. And you know, to the people that say like, "Oh, Pete, you're just being crazy. What are you talking about war?" It's like, what if it continues to escalate? What do you think is going to happen? What is the ultimate, like, where do you think this is going? If you disagree with me, oh, Pete, you can't say Germany is looking to control Europe, because in Germany they teach their kids, you know, to be ashamed of themselves for what happened in the 1930s and 90s. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about that. It's true in Germany. If you go to public school in Germany, you will have it drilled into your head that it was your father, you know, your grandfathers and such that committed this horrible atrocity on the Jews. But it's not that they do that that's bad. It's the way that they do it. They do it by making the kid feel guilty for being associated with, you know, with that thing that happened. The same way American kids are made to feel guilty about what happened to the Indians, or what happened to black people, or what happened to the Japanese people when we put them in internment camps and nobody died. This is the thing. Like, if you are walking around committing evil acts, like murdering people and being a thief, like George Soros, being a child molester, like these people in Hollywood, when those people are walking around committing evil, they feel no shame. They have no guilt. There's nothing in them eating away at them to make them stop and think, like, maybe I should stop doing this. And you know what that's called? Like, we have doctors now that can diagnose that, and we can give it a name. And you know what that name is? It's sociopath. Somebody who commits evil and feels no guilt is a sociopath. If you went to college for any amount of time, and, you know, because you have to take, you know, Psych 101, you would know that. That's what that's called. People who feel no remorse, no shame. That's a sociopath. You know who else is a sociopath? The reverse of that. Somebody who has done no evil and does feel shame. Right? Somebody who has not committed a crime and yet feels shame for that crime that they did not commit. That's being a sociopath. And so the long game over decades and decades is to drill it into the minds of the youth, like, you need to feel guilty for something you haven't done. You need to feel guilty for something you haven't done. And if you do something bad, don't worry, there's no such thing as evil, and you don't need to feel guilty about that. Now we have a generation of sociopaths. It's not everybody, it's not even the majority, but it's enough. It's enough to where the Democrats have no problem trotting out Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her partner in crime, Brenda Snipes, who were found guilty. They were prosecuted and they were found guilty of tampering with democracy, with tampering with the will of the people expressed on the ballot. That happened. There is no conspiracy theory. There's no questioning it. That happened. It's in the books. And yet this lady's she's still at it. You go to the border of Mexico, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California. And with the exception of San Diego, every single one of those voting districts, well, probably even the one in San Diego, but every one of those voting districts along that border, they're all blue. They're all Democrats. How is this possible? How is it possible that those are the places that are Democrat, but the rest of the state is red, like Arizona, New Mexico, and the rest of Texas? How is that possible as well? Because the Democrats understood, like, listen, we need cheap votes. And it's very easy to manipulate the system. It's like somebody comes across the border, right? You can fill out a voter registration card form, have them sign it, as long as there's an address on there that's not a P.O. box. And the county registrar, which is a word we need to get rid of in the English language, the county registrar doesn't know who that person is. I guess they're just registered to vote, and they mail them back their their confirmation that they're registered to vote, and boom, you've got yourself a registered voter. Easy. It's easy. It's easy. I told you this the other day. Like I wouldn't need a full hour episode to sit here and talk about if I were the evil person, like how easy it would be to manipulate the system. It's not very hard. It's like that story I told you about. The kid from Catch Me If You Can. Forgive me again, sir, for forgetting your name. Abagnale, Frank Abagnale. There we go. It's like Frank Abagnale. In the 1960s, he was a kid looking around and going, wait a minute. You telling me that all I have to do to manipulate this banking system is all I have to do is fill out this paperwork. All I have to do is go to the craft store and buy the right kind of paper, the right kind of ink, and just make it look official? That's all I got to do. Okay. And he made millions and millions and millions of dollars as a kid. A child could figure it out. When was the last time we changed anything about our voting process to secure it? People talk about, we need to have computerized. It's like, really? 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 How long would it take Google to figure that out? Right? How long would it take the engineers at Google to figure out how to hack into those computers and change things up? You know what I mean? It's like, it's weird because you hear these people talking, it's like, I don't think you're hearing yourself talk, mister. What are you saying? Like Liberal Sam wrote to me today, and he was like, because I wrote him about, another one of these horrific murders by, an illegal immigrant, a trespasser, an illegal immigrant that ICE wanted deported is now charged in wife's stabbing death again, right? So I was talking to Sam about that, and he writes me back. He's like, I can't believe. He goes, this is so dumb. 5 so's. The fact that you fixate on shit like this. I've told you many times before, immigrants commit fewer crimes than U.S. citizens. It's like, whoa. And it's like, am I the only one that does that? It's like, whoa. Let's talk about that for a second. Immigrants commit fewer crimes than U.S. citizens. Okay, well, nobody's against immigrants. Nobody's against immigrants. We all want immigrants. That's why we have an immigration process. We actually want immigrants. We're talking about illegal immigrants. But let's just say that old Sam didn't screw that up and put illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants commit fewer crimes than do U.S. citizens. It's like, well, okay, that's probably because 99.9% of everybody in the United States is here legally, right? 90% of everybody in America was born here, born there. So to say that immigrants or illegal immigrants commit fewer crimes, it's like, well, yeah, because there's less of them. We're not talking about that. We're talking about these people who are coming here illegally. Some of them are committing crimes, and that has to be addressed. We need to address illegal immigration, dummy. That's what we're talking about. Oh, but they don't commit enough crimes for us to really care about it. It's like, well, that's very comfortable of you to say, since it wasn't your daughter who was kidnapped and raped and sold into prostitution. It wasn't your daughter who was stabbed to death. It wasn't your daughter, your 13-year-old daughter, who was tortured to death by MS-13. Yeah, that came in over the weekend. You want to sit there and virtue say it's like, well, it's not that bad. It's because nothing bad's ever happened to you, Mr. New York City. Right? I'm from the border. I was born and raised on a border town. I'm aware of the problems, the actual problems. And yes, most of those people who are coming across illegally just want to have a better life. We're not really talking about them either. We're talking about the people who are coming across the border and selling fentanyl, and people are dying. who are kidnapping young girls and murdering them or getting them hooked on drugs and selling them off into prostitution, which happens regularly. It's a problem. When you stand against the border wall, it's like, well, how long have you been against having a border wall? How long have you been this superior non-racist, sir? Oh, my whole life. So you mean to tell me that when you voted for Barack Obama and Barack Obama was saying, listen, we need to fix the border, that you looked at Barack Obama and said, that's racist? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. This is what I'm saying. It's like, again, like when we look at what's happening with Brenda Snipes, it's like, how is it that everybody in America hasn't stopped and said, whoa, did I hear that right? Did you just say that this lady was convicted of the crime of finagling the ballot to get her friend to win? Did I hear you? Whoa. And now you're telling me that she is still the head of the office in Broward County. Broward County, where Scott Israel comes from. Broward County, where the Parkland shooting was. Where what's his name? That kid. Here's another thing. That kid that did the Parkland shooting, he voted from jail. Whoa. Hold on, I need you to repeat that because I don't think, there's no possible way that I heard you correctly. Did I just hear you say that the Parkland shooter voted from jail? Broward County. That kid, the Parkland shooter, Scott Israel, who purposely lied to the federal Department of whatever, Justice, I think, and misrepresented the crime statistics so that it would appear that they had less crime than they actually did so that he could get a subsidy from the federal government, which he took and bought a Lamborghini with. That's Scott Israel. There's a whole list, the mail bomber. From a week ago, the guy who sent like 12 bombs that never went off, Broward County. There's like all this stuff happening in Broward County. Brenda Snipes is the head of the effery that goes on with voting, and nobody stops and says, wait a minute. And then we see what happened in Maryland just over the weekend. We're living in a time right now in America where in the state of Maryland, if your family members say, hey, I think my cousin or my brother or my whatever, I think he's dangerous. He was saying some off-color things over the weekend about killing himself or killing his friends or killing whatever. People can just report you, and there's been over 200 cases where the police, right, the armed aspect of our society, went to people's homes and confiscated their guns. Over 200 of them. Now look, maybe every single one of those people was plotting a school shooting. And if that's the case, good job, police. But now I'm going to need to see some proof. I'm going to need to see that you chose to do this action on something more than just somebody called in a tip. Because this man who was murdered, who was executed by the police in Maryland over the weekend, he was number 205 or something like that. They showed up to his house, and he drew his weapon on them, and they shot him in his house. So that's not just a violation of the Second Amendment, that's a violation of the Fourth. Every what is it? A man's home is his castle. That rule, right? Which we got from the Magna Carta. Right out in the open. Right out in the open. It's like stop and frisk. You remember that? New York City, right after September 11th. Oh, we need to stop and frisk people. We need to stop and frisk people. Right? There was a lot of arrests that were made over that, but it's like, whoa, you're telling me you think that because the state passed a law, or even the local government of New York City, which has like 10 million people in it, like the local authorities said, okay, this is going to be a law of the city. If we want to stop you and shake you down, we can do that legally, and there's not much you can do about it. It's like, when you see things like that, it's like you have to understand it's coming. It's coming. What are you going to do when somebody with a badge and a gun comes up to you and says, "Excuse me, sir, I need you to tell your family to wait over there while I pat you down"? You going to stand for that? They don't want you to stand for it. What they want you to do is to be like that guy, right? It's kind of a win-win for them. Because if you stand up like that guy did and got himself killed over the weekend there in Maryland, it's like, look at this crazy person with his guns. He doesn't want to let go of his guns. He's a crazy person. And if you do turn in your guns, it's like, ha ha ha, my boot is on your neck. Don't talk to me about your rights. You better prepare for it because it's coming. Peace is the anomaly. Peace is the miracle. Right? Think about that. Think about that. Like, dear fellow Americans, we've been living in peace for a very long time. The only people in America who have seen war are people who volunteered for it. They wanted to go. That's how good we have it. That's how long war has not been a part of our lives. But we are among the only people on the planet who can say that. Everybody else has been to war. My wife lived through a war. I have friends up in Austria and Croatia. The people that are in Austria are from Croatia. They all lived through a war, and they were all old enough to remember it. You know what I mean? Like they're people that are in their 30s, early 30s, and they lived through a war because that's normal. War is the norm. And America's long overdue, and there's we could have kept going if it wasn't for these evil bastards who are trying to goad the American people into fighting. They're going to get it. They're going to get it. There's people right now that are looking at what just happened in Maryland, and they're saying, no, all right, no, we're not doing that. We're not giving up our Second Amendment rights. We're not giving up our right to free speech. We're not going to give up our right to have our home be our castle. We're not going to give up our rights to, face our accusers and due process. No, we're not doing that. You seem to want that, Democrats. You seem to be the ones who want to get rid of due process. You seem to be the advocates of people coming into our country illegally. You keep talking about like, oh no, we're talking about immigrants. It's like, no, we're not. We're not talking about immigrants. We're talking about illegal immigrants. And if they're illegal immigrants, well then they're no longer immigrants, they're invaders. These people coming up from South America are marching with their flag. That is a declaration of war. And it's coming. And I could go on and on about California and Gavin Newsom and all that other stuff, but I'm not going to. That's today's show. Hey, listen, everybody. Good news. Two things. My baby's not born yet. I wish he would hurry up and come and visit. I want to get to know that guy. But anyways, I have a microphone stand, a microphone cable. Now I'm just missing the microphone. I'm almost there. This is going to be awesome. The sound quality I know has been lacking over the last couple of weeks because I moved my studio and whatever. That's as soon as I get the microphone, I think that'll be fixed. But if you want to support the show, I appreciate all of you guys that give monthly on Patreon and throw a little cash my way on PayPal. If you want to PayPal me, send me a PayPal and write me a note. If you have questions, if you want to argue about something, whatever, and I will read your note on the podcast, thus making you famous in front of all your friends. Yo, that's how it works. Arch-advocate.com. Archadvocate.com. You can do PayPal, or you can do, if you want to become a monthly patron on Patreon, you can do that there. Either way, it's much appreciated. I appreciate you guys, and there's a pretty good possibility that I will talk to you tomorrow, unless my son is coming into the world. If not, I'll talk to you on Wednesday. You guys have a good one now.